Hello, everybody. I'm Chenier, and this is the always interesting, always informative joy in our town. We're going to talk about mental health challenges today with Glenn Urbach, who is the Executive Director of Nami Greater Houston. Thank you so much, Glenn, for being with us.
Well, thank you for having me.
We're glad you found us.
Yes.
and are able to give us some good information.
Sure.
Mental illness is definitely a challenge. It's not the finality. There's so many options and helpful medications and all kinds of things available, therapy and such. Can you give us a definition as we begin our conversation what mental illness is?
Right, so what we know about mental illness is they're simply just organic brain disorders. So if you treat your brain as it should be, which is an organ, no different than your heart, your lungs, your kidneys, what we know about organs, they don't always function properly, and your brain's no different. So when your brain doesn't function like it should, often it's a mental illness. So, and there's a spectrum of mental illnesses now that are very treatable. But the key for your audience to take away is they have to understand that illness is the brain. It's not that person's personality. It's not their upbringing.
Wow. It's
not their parenting. It's their brain. And you would never ask someone to control their heart. You can't ask someone to control their brain. It's just not realistic.
I don't think I've ever heard anybody put it like that, and I don't think that I've ever heard anyone really make us understand or pay attention to the fact that our brain is an organ.
It's an organ. It is.
Okay.
But you are your brain, and your brain is you. So when someone has a mental illness, let's say schizophrenia, and they start exhibiting those symptoms, it's so easy to look at that person and say, that's their personality. There's nothing wrong with their brain. What brain would tell people that God's talking to them? Well, they have to understand that woman's brain is telling her God's talking to her, and that voice is very real to her. And if she had a cardiac arrest, you call 911 and you feel sympathy for her. When she's on that street having that conversation, she's having a psychotic episode, she needs help, don't point your fingers at her and put it on her personality.
When it all depends on what God's telling that person too. I mean, I don't know that we can really move God into a place of talking or not talking. I don't know. We can't tell people that that's what they're hearing God or not. But if it's something ungodly,
but what we know about the brain and people with schizophrenia, those voices are real.
No, but what I'm saying is, does it help us to know the direction that the person takes as a result of?
So,
if somebody says, God told me to bump somebody off, we know God did not tell them that.
Well, yes. So with schizophrenia, again, we don't want to harp on schizophrenia, but yeah, sure. A lot of people who hear voices are either going to hear the voice of God, or I hate to say it, the voice of the devil.
Yeah, I understand.
But those voices are very real, but it's very treatable.
And it's really audible. I mean, as if like you and I are talking.
Absolutely.
Okay.
The rule of a schizophrenic, don't argue with that person. Don't tell them that God's not talking to them. Don't tell them that those ants are not invading their lunch. They can see those ants. They can see them.
It's very real, right?
Right.
I like what you said, though, that the person is not the organ, and the organ.
The brain.
Make it say right.
The brain is you.
Right.
But it's just an organ. You cannot control your brain. You can't control your kidneys, right? If you're going to get heart disease, you're going to get it. If you're going to get cancer, you'll get it.
So if there's a challenge, then we have to meet the challenge with the different resources that have been made available to us, right?
But first we have to define mental illness as an organic illness of an organ called your brain.
So that's the main thing.
Main thing,
it's an organic illness of the organ called your brain.
Right. That's
wow. And it also happens to be the director. It is in charge, it has a lot of authority.
Absolutely. And what we know about mental illness, very clear, they don't care if you're Christian, Buddhist, atheist, black, white, rich, poor. You live in America, you live in Afghanistan.
Right.
If you have a brain, you have mental illness, or you're susceptible to it.
Understood, absolutely. Now, bipolar is a terminology we hear a whole lot. Right. Can you break that down? That's a mental health challenge, right?
Sure. So, bipolar disorder and major depression are what we call mood disorders. It's a mental illness, but it affects people's moods. So, if you're bipolar, there's two types, usually type 1 and type 2.
Okay.
Type 1 is much more prevalent in the world.
Okay.
And what it is basically these people will go into what we call a manic episode, or they'll have an elevated sense of self, euphoria, lots of energy. They'll make impulsive decisions without thinking about it.
My goodness.
They have a high, but now, here's the thing about bipolar. It's bi meaning one pole.
Right.
Mania on the top, depression on the bottom. So people who go through a manic depressive episode, they usually start in the mania, and then what goes up comes down, and then they go through a depressive episode. And
So way high and way low.
right. And so in the depressive episodes, those symptoms are the exact opposite of the mania. So in mania, you make impulsive decisions. If you're depressed, you can't make a decision. You can't even change the channel. You don't even know what to do.
And so, once again, we're back at the organ.
Right.
That is functioning in an erratic manner.
Right.
It's like turning the volume up real high and turning it down
And
really
what we know
low.
with people with bipolar, there's just areas of the brain that just doesn't function properly.
Now, the connection to depression is the fact that it's high and low.
Right. Now
But there
we're
are
just talking
other
about-
forms of depression
right.
as
So
well.
now we're just talking about bipolar.
Yeah.
So now you have the second form of mood disorder, which is major depression, right? And that's just depression. There's no mania to it. But you still have all those symptoms of depression. And there's some people that literally will cycle from mania to depression in a day. Meaning you'll see them in the morning, they're excited, they know what they're going to do with their lives, and literally by the afternoon, they're in their home in the dark, depressed.
Now, what I want you to help us understand what it is that causes someone with a mental health challenge to reject medication. It seems like there always comes a time, or many times, there comes a time when the person who really needs the medication, seemingly, for whatever the reason, believes that they're better off without it.
Correct. So
what causes them to feel that way?
Well, because what happens with folks, it's a dirty little trick. So if you, let's say, go through a manic episode, doctor gives you medication, your medication takes care of the episode, right?
Yes.
What do we learn about medications in America or in the world? When the symptoms stop, you're supposed to stop taking the medicine.
Wow. So that's the mentality.
Right. So if you're bipolar disorder, what they have to understand is the reason why you're not having those symptoms anymore is the medication. But they think because they're not having the symptoms anymore that their depression was nothing more than the flu.
So it's something that's been healed as a result of, like an aspirin for a headache.
Right.
Now it's gone. I don't need to keep taking it.
Correct. Until you have the next headache.
Okay.
Until you have the next episode. And hopefully you won't.
How do you recognize mental health challenge? Now, I know there are lots of variables that exist, but are there standard? Is there a standard by which you can measure that something's going on?
It's called the DSM-5, and that's what people you know with mental illness, whether you're talking about schizophrenia or you're talking about bipolar, depression, you have to understand there is a distinct set of symptoms that person has to exhibit over a distinct period of time.
Can we talk about those symptoms?
So, as we tell people, if the Texans lose on Sunday and you're a little sad for 3 days, you do not have clinical depression. You don't have major depression.
Yeah.
Okay? If you have major depression, it's a distinct set of symptoms. You're usually in that depressed state for at least 2 weeks, right? Before they diagnose you as being in a depressed state.
Okay.
And then there's some other symptoms, loss of activities, loss of interest, concentration problems, memory problems. So you have very distinct symptoms. In the mania, very distinct. You have to be in an elevated mood for 1 week.
Things like ADHD and conduct disorder, do those all come under OCD, that kind of thing?
No, those are personality disorders.
Those are personality disorders.
Right. Now, a lot of people with mental illnesses have personality disorders. A lot of people who have maybe bipolar disorder might have, I don't know, let's throw out there, let's say narcissistic personality disorder.
Okay, well, tell our viewers what narcissism is first.
Well, narcissism are the people that you avoid in life. They're the guys who are arrogant, they think everything,
So is it a rather naval perspective?
Right, their personality. So personality disorders.
Totally different.
Totally different. They're very treatable still. They are linked a lot of times with mental illness, but in our world, mental illnesses are much more prevalent than personality disorders.
Now let's talk about Nami, Greater Houston for a moment.
Sure.
tell us what it is that you bring to the community that helps with the mental illness challenge.
Well, at Nami, we are the largest grassroots organization, mental health organization in America. The affiliate here in Houston, my affiliate, we're the largest in Texas, one of the largest in the nations. And Nami started out simply with mothers with adult children with schizophrenia back in the 80s, and they had no idea what to do with this person.
Wow.
So they got together and they formed what we call Nami Mommies, and they started this organization.
What does Nami stand for?
National Alliance on Mental Illness. So what we do, we offer free education classes taught by trained volunteers with lived experience, free, that will teach family members or those who live with the illness everything they could possibly know about the illness.
So good.
We also do support groups for folks. We do support groups for the diagnosed. We do support groups for family members. We do a lot of outreach programs.
That's good.
And we do advocacy. There are a lot of wonderful mental health organizations in Houston. I do propose that Nami Greater Houston probably has the most resources and the most programs available. But that's what we are. I mean, we're not geniuses. We just live with mental illnesses, and we have a good idea as to how to manage it, and we have programs for it, and we just do it.
That's
and everything we do is free.
That is so, so good. I'm going to give your information. I don't know if we're going to have time for another question at the end, but if we do, we'll ask it, and if we don't, we'll move on.
Okay.
This is Glenn Urbach. He is the executive director of Nami Greater Houston. His physical address is 3630 West Dallas. The suite number is 140. It's Houston, Texas, 77019. Phone number 713-970-4419. Website, NamiGreaterHouston.org.
Thank you.
NamiGreaterHouston.org.
Yes, ma'am.
Did I get it right?
You did.
So when you say grassroots, you're letting us know this organization started as a result of people who had a need. And
this organization started with your viewers.
That's awesome. That is absolutely awesome.
That's who they start with.
Now, over the years, you've seen the mental health community really expand its knowledge and expand the criteria of the problems too, right?
Correct.
Are we making progress?
Absolutely. Yeah. 20
in
years
Houston,
ago,
we're making progress.
Absolutely. 20 years ago, mental illness almost like a cancer.
But it's not like that anymore.
Yeah, you don't talk about it.
We're going to be back in just a moment. Don't go away.
Old man Hennessy's window.
Correction, dude. You broke. I just threw the ball.
This is really bad. What are we gonna do?
We?
Go to the door and ask for the ball back. Are you serious? It's my ball, Myrtlebeck. You're so dead.
I'd run away.
Yeah, to Uruguay.
Kiss your life goodbye. Sorry.
Let's go. See you, dude. See ya. Remember me and your well.
Nice one. Some friends you are.
Hi. Tell him it was an accident. And we can fix the window. Come on. I'll come with you.
Loyalty. Pass it on.
You go first.
A message from the Foundation for a Better Life.
Michael Adams?
Here.
Michael Adams?
Here.
Michael Adams.
Michael Adams.
Students who miss 18 days of school in any grade risk falling behind and not graduating. Absences add up. Keep track at boostattendance.org today.
this segment, we're going to talk about the state of mental health in Houston. And we've got Glenn Urbach with us, Executive Director of Nami Greater Houston. Thank you again for being with us.
Thank you.
We're delighted, and we're super excited to focus on mental health because we live in the great city of Houston, and there are so many options available to those of us who have these challenges.
Absolutely.
Tell us what the mental state, what is the state of mental illness here in Houston?
Well, there's no question that there's active collaborations going on between the city, between providers, and it's with the understanding here in Houston, we have an understanding that our mental health system is just not working. Here's a statistic that is going to make your mouth drop. The largest treatment facility in Texas for people with mental illness is the Harris County Jail. That's the largest one. It's bigger than any hospital.
Okay, say that again.
The largest treatment facility.
Treatment facility.
For people with psychiatric challenges is the Harris County Jail.
So you're saying that people that are in the Harris County Jail are being treated for mental illness?
They will even commit crimes just so they can get in the jail to get their treatment. They will urinate in front of a cop because he'll arrest them, he'll go to the county jail, and he'll get his medications. Now, the largest treatment facility in America for people with mental illnesses is the Cook County Jail in Chicago.
There's something really wrong with that picture, right?
We've criminalized mental illness because we've taken those symptoms and we've criminalized them because we don't understand that these are illnesses of the brain, not because of their personality.
So I ask you, what is the state of mental health, mental illness in Houston? And then your answer is, well, the greatest place to go is to jail if you want to be cared for.
So
seriously.
That's the truth. But again, we are now recognizing that we have diversion programs that are going on in this city that no one else is doing. There's a 9/11 diversion program. So when a family member calls and says, you know, my loved one is having a psychiatric emergency, they will send a trained therapist and a police officer to go see them. And then when they're talking to the 911 operator, they're actually talking to a licensed therapist. So they can maybe de-escalate the situation before a police officer goes out there.
Because de-escalation would remedy so many problems, right?
Exactly. Every day, God bless these officers, they will take a life because someone's mentally ill and they just don't have the training. That will happen today.
So what does that say about the condition of awareness for your average community participant? I mean,
first of all, we tell people these are illnesses that are manageable. And then we tell people you got to find the services. And if you call Nami, if you call our office, we have an information referral center. Every month we process over 1,000 requests for referrals, and that's all we do. We will plug you up to all the resources that are available to you.
But now, Glenn, that's a big gap in services when you say county jail versus mental health care facilities. There are dozens and dozens of them all over Harris County, Fort Bend County, Brazoria.
Right.
But you're saying that the county jail is a resource, a viable resource. So what does that say about what's happening to individuals who are not going to jail?
Well, you hope that they're getting care, and then if they're not, it's just it's a black eye on our. So
country. Where's the gap? Is it a lack of knowledge?
The gap is the services are there.
Okay.
They're not promoted because of various reasons. You know, usually financial. We have a very large service area. I mean, 6.5 million people we serve. You know, if everybody today who have a mental health challenge decided to get treatment in this city, we don't have the capacity to treat these people. We don't. And we just don't. Because you remember, 1 out of 4 Americans will have a mental illness in their lifetime. They just will.
Okay, now when you say 1 out of 4 will have, that means that there are curable mental health. Okay,
absolutely.
Let's talk about those. What are there? So there are some you can take medication for and eventually not have to take the medication.
No.
Okay, so that's what I'm asking.
Maybe your psychiatrist will say that. But remember, those medications is why you're not having those symptoms.
So there's never a time when a person with mental health challenges is going to not struggle if not for the medication.
That's not, that they can do that. There's people with mental health challenges that don't take medications and they do other things. Alternative therapies, talk therapies.
Okay.
Diet and exercise. So no, there are other treatment options besides medications, but medications is your best treatment option.
And a diagnosis is more important than anything, that you know what you're dealing with, right?
Right, and make sure when you talk to the psychiatrist, he works for you, and you make sure you give him every information possible.
Okay, let's talk about the economy and how it affects our ability to do things.
Sure.
The economy dictates so much of what we're able to do and afford.
Right.
How does it affect the mental health
I'll give you an
community?
example. So, we have the oil, gas, dropping prices. And today, there are going to be Houstonians that are going to get laid off from their jobs because of it. And then what do? They weren't expected to get laid off today, right? And they got that mortgage payment, and they got those bills, and they got the family to take care of. So let's say he gets fired today or laid off. He can't sleep. He's thinking about, what am I going to do for my job?
Yeah.
Now, if he goes without a good night's sleep for 2 weeks, he is in danger of going through a manic episode. Because
so there are triggers.
The old saying, if I don't get some sleep, I am going to lose my mind. Right? You've heard that.
Well, yeah.
When the person came up with that was someone who had bipolar disorder who couldn't sleep. He really said, if I don't get some sleep, I'm going to lose my mind.
Okay.
And that's the phrase.
Okay. Well, okay.
It is.
But of course, if anybody who goes without rest or sleep for too long is going to find themselves at their wits' end,
trouble,
right?
Because your brain is.
That doesn't mean you're bipolar, though.
Well, you could have a manic episode, and if you do, you might have bipolar disorder.
Okay.
It just might have been untreated for 40 years. I mean, we don't. One thing I would tell your audience: please understand, everyone's situation's different.
Yeah,
it just is.
Sure.
The best thing to do is get evaluated.
There's such a stigma, though, that's attached to mental illness.
Right.
And it's embarrassing for some folks, which speaks to what you shared earlier, that our community we're ignorant to. Number one, that it's really 1 out of 4 people who are struggling with it, but we're just ignorant to the process and the needs of ourselves and others.
Well, stigma is another word for discrimination. That's all it is.
Exactly.
And stigma is what's killing people because we're embarrassed to say we have bipolar disorder or depression. Or if you're a mother and you tell someone, my son has schizophrenia, are you going to judge me on this? Are you going to think I'm a bad parent? Right?
Wow, that's so true.
Now, if that loved one had diabetes, you would get sympathy, right? They wouldn't judge the parents. It's not fair, is it?
No, it isn't fair.
No.
It's not fair. But it's also dangerously unfair because because we're not fair about it, because we attach stigmas to it, it creates dangerous situation because people that need medication.
Exactly.
And a lot of things that happen could be avoided.
Right. And what's sad is it's just so much easier to point out to that schizophrenic or that depression, just say, you know what, you're a loser. You're just not making it in this world.
And that's horrible.
It's horrible.
Okay, I want you to talk some more about the Nami programs.
Sure.
Tell us, we get an understanding of what your intention as an organization is. Tell us what you're actually doing. You're a grassroots organization doing what?
So our core is our education classes. So we have a class called Family to Family. It's for anybody who has a loved one who's an adult with a mental health challenge. Maybe it's your husband or your adult son. Mm-hmm. In the class, we will give you even a binder. Every week we'll add to your binder that you take with you that will prepare your loved one for the mental health challenges in their lifetime. Mm-hmm. And we'll go over the symptoms, the medications, the resources, emergency plans, and what to do when you have to call the police, and what to say to the police when you do call. And we teach you all that stuff. We have a program called Peer to Peer. It's a class. Now, this is for the people who actually live with the illness.
Yes.
And then we have a called Basics for parents and caregivers who have children. Maybe a 15-year-old with bipolar. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. We have a provider education class where we will literally go out to every psychiatric hospital and train every one of those staff members what mental illnesses look like from a family's perspective. 5-week class.
Awesome.
And then we have, like I said, our support groups. They're free, they're confidential, they're warm, they're welcoming, they're understanding. And then we have our outreach programs where, like I said, we will go out and talk to people about mental illness. As a matter of fact, we're the only Nami in the nation that has its own bookmobile. We have a bookmobile that goes to all the psychiatric hospitals. He parks there, he allows people to check out books, he makes referrals.
Wonderful.
Exactly.
Now, let me ask you, what can we do as a community? As a matter of fact, you know what I think I'm going to do? I'm going to give your information now. Then I'm going to come back and I want you to be thinking about this question. What can we do as a community to be more helpful and aware of symptoms that we might see in a loved one, in a coworker, or something like that? Okay. This is Glenn Urbach. He is the executive director of Nami Greater Houston. His physical address, or I should say Nami's physical address, is 3630 West Dallas, Suite 140, Houston, Texas, 77019. Phone number 713-970-4419. Website NamiGreaterHouston.org. NamiGreaterHouston.org. And again, the phone number is 713-970-4419. Did I get all that right?
You did.
All right. Now, tell us what we can do better as a community to notice, pay attention to different things before they get out of control.
Okay, well, first of all, let's just, can we just radically accept that people have mental illnesses and don't point it to their personality or their upbringing.
Separate the individual.
Exactly. Separate the brain from the individual. Separate the heart from the individual. That's what you do.
I understand.
So that's the first thing we have to do is just have an understanding of what these illnesses are. In terms of support, obviously there's volunteer opportunities with organizations like Nami. There's outreach efforts out there that people can get a part of.